We're here this afternoon with Tim Hackbarth, who has a profile on FindaGuitarTeacher.com. Good afternoon, Tim. Thanks for talking to us today.
Good afternoon, James. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to be here with you. I know on your profile you teach in Buffalo, New York. Can you tell us more specifically where you teach? Do students come to you or do you go to your students' homes?
Well, I have a plan, basically, to tell you I'll be going to my students' homes. I've been teaching on and off over the last 8 years, mostly off, and I wanted to get started up on this again. And my plan is to go after the older beginning students who may be a little bit intimidated going into a music store, who'd rather have
Right.
someone come to visit their house and teach them what they want to learn. I remember when I started off in this, I ended up being self-taught because I really didn't have teachers who wanted to teach me what I wanted to learn. They wanted to show me how good they were. They wanted to show me theory and scales and things like that. And I'm like, all I wanted to do was play songs, but nobody would listen. So I became self-taught, and I used that experience to say, there's going to be a market out there for people who just want to learn what they want to learn, and an older market. I'm really after, say, the older 35-year-old plus students who've always wanted to play guitar but are intimidated by going into a music store with the music store elite in there, and they just want someone who can talk to them. My experience is a salesman, and as a salesman, I know how to find out what people need and deliver that to them, and this is what I want to take into my music guitar teaching career.
Well, you lead me into my next question, which would be in that market that you've been shooting for, what kind of styles of music do you find your students interested in learning?
Well, the students I'm going to be teaching are going to be mostly interested in learning, I should say, classic rock and oldies. I have a background in country, not really a jazz guy. I'm more of a classic rocker. I saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan in 1964,
Wow.
and that changed my life. And I said, that's what I always wanted to be, was a musician. Put your
Wow.
dreams on hold for a while. But that is really the group I'm after. I'm a bit of a music historian myself, and I find that it's a lot easier to teach people music if you can understand the backgrounds of the bands, the reason they wrote the songs, so you can get into the nuts and bolts of the theory in your own mind, but explain to people what Keith was thinking or what John and Paul were going through when they wrote this particular song. So that's really the market I'm after, people who are interested in the classic rock and oldies. Again, I love playing the country style guitar also, but basically I just want to get with these beginners and get them playing.
That sounds wonderful, Tim. That's a really great plan. I wanted to ask you some just about the kind of, you mentioned the term nuts and bolts, the nuts and bolts kind of logistics of your lessons. How long are your lessons and how often do you meet students?
Well, my lessons are going to be an hour long because I plan, if I'm going to be traveling to their house or their place of business, which is the plan right now,
Yes.
an hour would be the most sensible way to do this. And nuts and bolts wise, we will start basically with, as we'll get into later, just learning the chords, how to hold the guitar, how to hold the pick, what gear you need to start up. You need a guitar, you need strings that are in tune, you need picks, and most importantly, you need a tuner and a metronome. That's the way you get started, I feel. And that's really where I want to get these people going. And then we can talk about, the old needs analysis. What do you like? What do you want to do? Here's what I can do. Let's get there together.
And you started to talk a little bit about your approach and said we'll talk about it later. And we can get into that right now. Can you tell us how you approach your teaching a new beginner student? What do you show them to get them started?
Well, again, the first thing we really want to talk about is I want to make sure that they have a guitar that's in tune. Because there's no sense wasting half a lesson trying to get that thing in tune. Make sure they
Right.
have strings and it's in tune. Then we're going to focus on how to hold the guitar, how to hold the pick, and then start right with the five basic food groups, I call them, CAGED chords.
I like it.
That and the strumming, and just get them started learning these chords and then how those chords turn into songs. And then if they want to learn single note leads, I'd like to get them started on very simple pentatonic scales and how they relate to the chords when we get that far. But just to start off, let's learn songs, guys, because I believe that's what most people want to do, learn songs and sing with those songs.
And is there anything that you like to play on the guitar while we're doing the interview to kind of demonstrate your teaching approach?
Well, yeah, and again, most importantly, as we see, we have the metronome here.
Yes.
And I have found over the last few years that we all try to play too fast. So I have the metronome set at a 112 pace instead of my normal 128. Just keep it at 112. And we're going to talk to the students about finger positioning and, again, playing the 5 basic chords of C with 4 strums. A, G, E, and D. Again, the caged acronym. And then I'll say, now you learn those 5 songs, we can make a song. G. And just get them started playing songs. Then, as they'll say, well, maybe I've always wanted to learn how to play a lead to something. I'm going to show them the basic pentatonic scale and how they can actually relate to each other from a major and a minor standpoint. In other words, same position, same cookie cutter pattern equals a different sound. So, for instance, let's use the key of A, and we're going to play a minor blues scale. And then that same A, and we're going to use the same cookie cutter pattern, but it's going to sound more country now. Okay, so that again gets them more into the idea of what you can do with scales. Then to have fun with the guitar, the open voicings, the simpler stuff they can learn playing and start off playing, have a lot of fun with, like. And then I've always been very riff-oriented myself, so I'll say, well, what you might want to learn too is things like and move it on up to and then finish off with, and that's it. That kind of stuff. Just the nuts and just show them that it's not difficult to learn all this stuff. But what I want to get across to them, as you can tell from me, I hope, I'm a passionate person. I'm a passionate person about the guitar and about life. And I need the folks playing guitar to understand that they need that passion to continue to practice, because if this is something they've always wanted to do, you have the passion for it, you will do it. And that's as simple as that.
And you mentioned that you teach hour lessons. What is your fee for 1 hour?
My fee for an hour is going to be $30 an hour, and then depending on how far I have to drive, if it's close, there'll be no fuel surcharge. But if it's, say, 30 miles from my house, then we're probably going to be asking for an extra $5.
And that brings me kind of back to my first question, which was about where you teach, and you mentioned you'll be traveling to students. I don't know the Buffalo area well, but people who watch this interview will. Maybe you'd like to say more specifically, like, what is your range in terms of traveling to people's homes?
Well, I live in the town of Elma, which is the south towns of Buffalo. So I would go as far up, for people listening, up to North Tonawanda and as far down as Hamburg, Orchard Park, East Aurora, and that type of circle, probably a 20 to 25 mile radius from my house.
That's wonderful, Tim. And can you tell us also how often will you meet with students? Are you going to do it, do you try to meet with students once a week or more frequently, less frequently?
Once a week is going to be my goal with every student, just to give them the time so they can go over their lesson for last week, and then we can start it up for the next one.
That's great. And one last question for our interview, and I've really enjoyed learning all this about your guitar teaching. Students who come to you, obviously, the beginning students, They may be looking for their first guitar. They may be at some point in their work with you looking to buy a new guitar. Do you offer guidance to your students about buying equipment, especially buying guitars?
Oh, absolutely. As you know,
Yes.
most of us guitar players are, I hate to use the word gearheads, but I do a lot of research on what the best guitars to play are for me and beginning guitars. Also, picks, metronomes, tuners, that type of thing, so that we can get the students started on something that will be easy to play, but more importantly, stay in tune, just to get them interested in it. Got to build the calluses up, but you don't want to kill yourself, you know?
That's you have to find that right balance, especially when you're starting on the guitar. Well, Tim Hackbarth, I want to thank you so much for taking the time this afternoon to talk with us about your guitar teaching. And it's been great to learn more about what you do. I want to wish you best of luck and continued success with your music and with your guitar teaching in the Buffalo, New York area.
James, I thank you for the opportunity, and I'm looking forward to my career.
I'm looking forward to hearing all about how it's going. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a good day.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Tim. Take care.
Bye now.
Bye bye.